Hello and welcome to the channel. Gordon here of G17 Collectibles. Okay, so today's video is all around the new figure that's just landed. This is the Facepool World War II US Ranger Captain, or in other words, it is Private John Miller from Saving Private Ryan. So I've been looking at this for a while and decided to go for it this month. Already I'm thinking that this figure needs to be weathered. It's too clean, but I don't know how I'll approach it, but I'm sure I'll work it out once I have a look at the figure. Anyway, let's get figure out of the box and take a very close and quick look at what it comes with. Okay, so in the box you can see we've got the top layer. It has figure, I can see the Thompson submachine gun, helmet, revolver, belt, water canteen, pouches, holster, shovel, I think that's a shovel, and a pouch. And the layer underneath contains the Rocky base, the vest, a couple of spare hands, and the crotch grabber. So let's get the parts out on the table and we'll take a closer look. Okay, so here's all the bits and bobs out of the box. We have obviously the figure, a belt, the Thompson submachine gun, holster, which is just a pleather, very thin piece. We have the water canteen, pouch, spade, a pouch, revolver, a couple of spare magazines for the Thompson. We have this helmet. Over here we have the base, hands, vest, and you get a little packet with some spare buttons and patches in it. Initial thoughts, the base first of all, it's actually really heavy. It feels as if it's like a solid piece of resin. It has a lovely, how do I describe that? It has a, it has a lovely black edge to it, very museum quality. The base itself, quite well detailed with all these rocks, etc. So I quite like the base. Before I jump into the actual figure, just take a quick look at some of the accessories. We have that Thompson machine gun. It is plastic, has a moving slide part there, has a nice strap. I think that might be removable. Wrong colour, so I need to paint the wooden parts. What I did notice was this little water canteen here is actually really heavy. I think it's made of metal. Looks like one solid piece. The revolver and the magazine parts, plastic again. The little bag here, the shoulder bag, is just a bit of padding inside that, but it's quite nice. The helmet is metal, so you have all the nice webbing inside the actual helmet. I don't know if that's going to come off on camera, but certainly you can see the helmet's really nice, and again it's a piece of metal there. So really impressed with that helmet. The vest, really nicely detailed. So you can see that it has all the straps and pouches, and all these pouches have been filled with some foam. So that's going to give it some nice depth. It has all the little clasps, all the little buckles. So yeah, that's quite nice as well. And then from the figure's perspective, you know, I think the likeness to Tom Hanks is there. Give me 2 seconds, let me try and turn the light on in here. Don't know if that's going to make a huge difference, but let's have a look. So, the likeness to Tom Hanks is, of course, there. I definitely can see Tom in that sculpt. Maybe looks a little bit puffy, but overall, I think once you stick that helmet on, let's see if we can put this helmet on him. You know, that's pretty decent. So as I said, it needs some weathering, and I do plan to do that. There's a nice jacket, very, very clean, mind you. Nice trousers. It has the spats and the boots, but you can see everything is just far too clean. You know, this is supposed to be a weathered and dirty figure, and I think it'll really lift the figure once we once we get it all weathered. I'm going to take some time doing that. Got a wee weathering kit. I'm going to get some powders, etc. and we'll try and weather the whole thing up. But generally I'm quite happy with that. It's got all the potential to be a really, really stunning figure. Okay, so I've never really weathered a figure before. I've done plenty of other things and made things, painted things, but this is a first for me. So I've got an idea of what I want to try and do. I want to try and do some general weathering and dirtering of the figure and all the accessories and components, and then potentially use acrylic paints watered down with a wash to come in to some of the other parts, and potentially even look at some weathering powders. So what I've got first of all is I've got this little Tamiya weathering master kit. This is the one that has snow, soot and rust, and as a test I'm going to approach and tackle this this field shovel. Now, within the weathering kit itself, and I have used this before to do some modelling, you get this little brush with a foam tip and a brush tip, and then you have obviously the snow, soot and rust. And using it dry initially, I'm literally going to just load some of the kind of dry powder on this brush first of all, and then just rub that into the material. Like so. You can see that's already transferring quite nicely onto the material. And it's kind of dirtying it up, so I'm quite pleased with that. Take some more of that brown. And just kind of go over the full thing. I'll just do 1/2 just so you can see the difference. And I'll take some of that black now. And I'll just try and go over some of the edges with the black. So it's just, to me, very subtle but effective. I'm going to swap it to the tip here, that foam tip, and I just want to catch some of these edges and try and blacken them up. And then try and be a bit random when it comes to dirty marks. Okay, so it maybe looks a bit darker on camera, but generally I'm quite pleased with that. You can see the weathered side and the non-weathered side. Let me continue, let me do the other half, and I'll try and show you the full weathered version. So same process again. Just rubbing this all over the pouch. that even, and then take some of the black. Get into all them corners. There we go. So it probably does look a little bit dirtier as I'm looking through the camera here, but generally I think that's the kind of look I'm going for, kind of used, worn and weathered look. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to continue on now and do some other parts. So here we have the belt first, and realised that I needed a little bit of water just to mix in with the paint block to then paint. The dry method was okay on the softer fabrics, but not great. It would have taken an age to try and get the dry paint block transferred onto the material, so a little bit of water here and on the paint just gave me that better adhesion, etc. into the fabric. Too much water though, I found out, too much water. It really does soak into the fabric, so you need to be really careful and kind of wipe it off your brush before you start applying. So this is just me going over the belt. First of all, did pretty much everything with the brown, and I kind of experimented as I went, made sure that, you know, I wasn't going too hard, too heavy. I started with the pieces that you couldn't really see. So this is the inside of the belt. Didn't have any practice material, whatever, so I just had to go straight for it. Using the rear side of the belt, I kind of honed the technique. Thought, yeah, that's a bit too dirty, it's a bit too much. So it kind of allowed me to learn as to how I would do the actual other side, and I could be a bit lighter with the wearing. I'm trying to look at touch points. I'm trying to look at, you know, where hands would be, buttons and flaps, and, you know, where you would buckle that belt, and make that a little bit more weathered than everything else. And you'll see when we come to doing like things like the trousers, etc., really thinking about how people move and how a soldier would kneel and how they would use their elbows to go through the mud, and put a little bit more weathering on those parts. So here you can see the front side of the belt, and I'm not as I'm a bit more cautious. I'm a bit more cautious in how much paint I'm actually applying this time. When you put water on the paint block initially, it's like, you know, it goes like you would expect. It's like paint, but the water does dry up very, very quickly, and it leaves you with just a damp pad. And it's that damp pad that you really want to take your paint from on the brush. Wipe it off a little bit on the, I'm using cardboard here as my base, as my table protector. Wipe that off, and then use whatever's left on the paintbrush to kind of weather. I also was taking the foam tip quite a lot and just dabbing the very end into the black paint, and then just really dabbing little bits here and there and everywhere to kind of give it a nice effect. So that was the belt finished. I then moved on to the water bottle and used a similar technique. Again, you can see me putting a little bit of water on that brown block, wiping it off, and then just literally using whatever's left on the brush, the kind of residue, to transfer onto the material. Again, just always using the brown first and then coming across with the black. And again, looking at touch points and points where you think it'll be a bit more dirtier than everywhere else. I'm thinking, well, the bottle will sit on the ground, so the bottom needs a bit more weathering. The flaps, you know, dirty fingers, etc. The cap. These are types of areas where I'm thinking they'll maybe get a little bit more dirty than anywhere else. Now here we go with the actual figure, working my way up from the bottom. I started with the boots and started with the brown, the kind of rust colour. Sorry, my camera work is terrible. I'm not necessarily paying attention to focus on the camera and where I'm painting, but yeah, took the brown and just started a little bit of water here. You know, I'm wanting to actually be like paint. I want to layer up as if the boots are quite muddy, quite dirty, and then the mud would transfer from the bottom of that spat all the way up to the top, gradually getting slightly cleaner as we go. The kind of look I'm going for on the boot is like a dry mud, you know, like not caked with mud, just like a kind of dried out haze on the actual boot. So I'm trying to work the paint into the kind of cracks and crevices from the sole that meets the part of the leather boot itself, and making sure I get those spats kind of caught with some of that paint as well. You can see me putting the paint on and just wiping it off with my thumb. I don't necessarily want the paint just to sit on there in big clumps or be solid in any way. So I'm just keep applying layers and layers of that brown with a little bit of black through it. So using the black there, realise that it's kind of taking the mud away. So again, back to the brown again, using more of that brown, and just kind of layering it up. So here you can see I'm starting to get that dirty haze on the boot. That's exactly what I was going for. A kind of dirty haze with brown and mud round the bottom. I'm not being too careful here. I am just applying, and I'm more than happy to get that same colour splashed on the spats as well. There I am just applying more of that brown on the actual sole. So yeah, that's the kind of look I was going for. The brown leather being kind of like a hazy kind of dirt with brown on the sole, and then transferring that kind of darker colour to the bottom of the spat. So working on the trousers now, you can see that I've already done a pass of weathering up the spats, now covered off both of the boots. Quite happy with that. I think, yeah, they are pretty dirty, but I'm imagining Captain Miller trudging over the countryside, going through a lot of mud and hedges and fighting the Germans. Now taking the paints, and I am weathering the nice trousers. I have a plan here to make sure that the knees, so what I did was I bent the knees, and I made sure the knees, the area around there, was really quite dirty. Imagining when you're kneeling on grass and mud, etc, those are going to be the dirtiest parts. So I'm kind of just wiping my brush around, getting more of that brown and black paint, and just kind of covering all areas of the fabric, paying particular attention to areas that are kind of highly dirty. I'm doing the knees at this point, and I keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. Yeah, just keep going, covering the whole fabric, making sure you've got all the points where you think are going to be dirty, so the pocket seams, etc. Catching the black paint in them as well. Now you're about to hear some squeaky knees. Yeah, the body in this one just wasn't that great. The body's a bit basic, so the joints, when you did the elbows and knees, they really did squeak and creak. I mean, it's an okay body, but really, I think it's probably, you know, a cheaper body. The joints are okay, they're not massively tight. When we come to posing the figure, the body was fine, it was posable, it just wasn't the greatest in the world. Now here again, I'm just taking some of that black on the felt tip and just trying to put some random kind of dirty marks all over the trousers. You know, I'm thinking the trousers are probably the worst from a dirt perspective. So the dirt, as you go from boot to helmet, it gets progressively a little bit cleaner as you go up. I'm also paying particular attention to the pockets. Again, those touch points where dirty hands potentially are constantly getting in and out of those pockets and lifting the flap, so one side's going to be dirtier than the other. And yeah, just trying my best to make it look as realistic as possible. So I've now moved on at this point. I haven't recorded the whole weathering process because it took me all afternoon, probably about 4 hours in total from start to finish. So I'm just kind of trying to capture on video some of the highlights, some of the basic weathering that I did. So now I've done all the trousers, I've done the jacket, the face, and I've now put the vest on, and I'm now weathering up the vest. You can see there that on the jacket I've tried to pay attention to the kind of like the forearms and the elbows and weather them a little bit more. I probably went a bit too heavy on that, to be fair. I think they're a bit too weathered. Luckily you don't really see them, they're on the back side. But yeah, if I just do it again, I probably wouldn't have done as harsh a weathering on that part. The vest, I'm trying to keep as clean-ish as I possibly can. Although I think I did put maybe a little bit too much weathering on. It's yeah, you can see there some of the areas are a little bit dirtier than originally I had thought in my mind. So I'm just trying to maybe take it back a little bit, take it back. The problem in working with these weathering paints and working in fabric is there's no room for error. If you load your brush up with a little bit of water and the weathering paints, and the minute you touch that fabric, if you get it wrong, it's soaked into the fabric. You can't wipe it off as you would with something that's plastic. plastic or metal. Moving on to the helmet, I just wanted to kind of again get that haze on the helmet. I haven't done any silver scratches or any chipping. I might go back and do that. I need to go and get myself some of that silver paint. And I kind of wanted to wear off the sergeant insignia on the front of the helmet, but I just chose to weather it instead. I didn't want to damage the green paint that was around that. So here I'm just literally taking some of that brown paint, applying that on, and then layering up the black on top. So the brown gives you that kind of nice haze, and I'm just trying to put marks and random parts all over the helmet. You know, the weathering was somewhat easy but also somewhat hard. I've done painting before, and I've painted models, and I've done all sorts of things, but I've never actually, I've weathered models, but I haven't ever weathered a figure, as I've said before. So part of the difficulty is just trying to understand where you should put the paint, and where all the marks and streaks should go. I wasn't working on any reference material here. I didn't have any pictures, or I'd watched Saving Private Ryan the day before, if that's anything to go by, but I hadn't printed anything off. But it is really difficult to be random and not make the colours look as if they're being applied on purpose. I've now moved on to that base, and as much as the base is really nice, it's a heavy base, it's just one solid piece, and it has some really nice detail on it with the cobblestones and the kind of broken bricks and rocks and that plank of wood. I did want to add a little bit more depth to it. I felt as if the paintwork was good, but it could have been improved upon. So here you can see I've literally just taken some of that brown, some of that black, and dabbing it on in different spaces. I was hoping to try and generate some depth here and really get the base to kind of pop a little bit more. So taking all the paints and just randomly kind of applying that to every part that I could see, giving a bit more depth to the wood, with that brown colour and some blacks going in between the rocks and cobbles and giving them either that haze on top or some brown or some black. But yeah, it was just a case of just randomly plucking away and keep applying until I got the finish I was really looking for. Here we go, final result. Overall quite happy. All I used was this Tamiya weathering master kit, and I used the suit, a combination of this suit and the rust and the little brush supplied to kind of like apply the weathering from top to bottom. So the stand, the outfit, the boots, right the way up. Did the portrait and the helmet. I think I've done maybe a little bit too much. It looks a little bit dirtier than I had planned in my head. But the difficulty I found was by using the kit, the minute you start applying weathering to the fabric just takes it and soaks it in. There is no margin for error. You cannot take it back off. So yeah, overall, I am happy. I haven't, I feel as if I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I have weathered the figure. It's much better, I feel, than what it was when it arrived clean. So I do think the weathering has added some realism to the overall figure. I'm happy. I am happy. I've got a tendency to overdo things as it is. I have weathered things before or painted things before, and I do have this tendency to go a bit too far anyway. I think maybe I've went a touch, and I mean a touch, not drastically. I have maybe went a touch too far, especially when I look at the upper portion. So the jacket, the vest, potentially are a little bit too dirty. But I do like the boots, I like the spats, I like the trousers. I've tried to apply some real weathering around the knees because that's, you know, we'll be kneeling and crawling along. I've also done the same on the elbows. Let me take the camera off and we'll have a spin round closer. I really am quite pleased with this figure overall. You can see that is Tom Hanks. And after weathering the Thompson, it's kind of taken that light brown colouring out, so it's a bit more accurate. So in truth, I didn't actually have to paint the wooden parts of the Thompson. I literally just used my weathering kit to do that. Coming down, you can see the knees. I've put some extra weather in there on the spats. Quite happy with the way the boots turned out. And I've applied weathering to that base. So yeah, overall, I am pretty happy. It's a really, really good figure from Facepool. My first from Facepool, never had one before from Facepool. Not sure whether I would buy any more because this is the only one from Private Ryan that I really wanted to get, was Captain Miller. I think the other ones they've produced are pretty decent. I think DID also produce a similar figure and perhaps range. But overall, I'm really happy with this one. I think it's now that I've added the weathering, it adds a certain element of realism and makes it look, you know, a lot better than the standard one that comes out the box. So if you like the video, please give me the thumbs up. If you want to comment, did I do a good job, a bad job? You know, I'm not an expert. I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to doing figures. This is my first one I've ever done, really. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Until the next video, take care.